Hey everybody, and welcome back to this week's Fast Five, where we give you 5 tips so you can save money. This week we are going to look at ground beef, and these are all steps that you can take this week or next week and immediately start to see some savings. So I recently saw a discussion in a Facebook group where some people were saying that every week they buy a 5 pound or a 10 pound roll of ground beef for each week. So they're not necessarily waiting for it to go on sale. This is just their preferred meat. They use it for pretty much all their meals. So every week they're buying a 5 pound roll. Well, just like I don't want you to have to buy chicken every week, I don't want you to have to buy ground beef. Now we can get into all the reasons why ground beef is more expensive than it ever has been, but honestly, those are really outside of our control. What is in our control is to really look at these prices. Now, sometimes the 1 pound roll is the most expensive, and the bigger, the 5, the 10 pound rolls are the cheapest per pound. This is showing this week at Walmart, where they actually have their 5 pound rolls on sale. So by buying a 5 pound roll, you're saving almost $1.50 per pound. So you're going to get a whole lot more meat for less price. But this is not always accurate. Sometimes the 3 pound and the 1 pound rolls come out cheaper. So I would say try to buy in bulk as much as you can, but only if it's at a good price. If you're just buying like on autopilot every week, you could be paying huge differences every week in your ground beef prices. Now, if you do find a good deal on like a 5 pound or a 10 pound roll, don't take that whole roll and just go put it in your freezer. That thing is going to take forever to defrost. So either go ahead and chunk it up into nice, like 1 pound. I actually like to do it as like 3/4 pounds because you don't always need a full pound. And honestly, you're not going to notice that much, but you're going to get an extra meal out of there. But here's another thing that I like to do. I like to go ahead and cook up a good amount of that ground beef up front and drain it. I don't use any seasonings besides maybe some salt, pepper, and garlic powder because I know I'm more than likely going to add that to any dish anyway. And then once it's cooled down, I just go ahead and put it in a Ziploc bag and I put it in my freezer. Now, if you take a 1 cup measure, usually it's 2 cups of cooked ground beef equal about a pound. So it's just super quick. And then all you have to do, you don't even have to defrost it. You just take the 1 cup or 2 cup of the cooked ground beef that's already frozen, put it in a pan, add a little bit of water, and it'll steam it back to life. And then you can add your taco seasoning or your tomato sauce, and boom, you're done. The other thing I would mention here, don't just check your grocery stores. Go Google meat market near me. A lot of times the smaller meat markets will have like family deals or weekly specials, and sometimes you can get a really good deal. Now, I'm not saying their prices are always cheaper, but sometimes they are, so definitely double check that. If you saw the menu, I think from 2 weeks ago, it ended up being cheaper to buy frozen hamburger patties than it was to buy a 1 pound container of ground beef. So I want to add into that you can also buy meatballs. And I'm talking about it's usually in the meat case. You'll see there's just pre-formed meatballs. Okay. And sometimes those go on sale, and it's super easy just to grab one of those and cook it just like you would hamburger. And it's funny, I don't know why people get a little weirded out by that one, but if you're looking at, quality meatballs or quality hamburgers where it's really just the meat and it's just in a different shape, there's no reason you can't use that to make tacos or stroganoff or anything else. So I don't just look at the meat case at the regular things of ground beef. I'm looking at all the different options. Now, really, in the last 3 to 4 years, my husband and I have made the choice to switch over to mainly ground pork. And that's simply because it's similar to like an IGA style store, and they typically have their ground pork as low as 99 cents a pound. And that's going to blow out the prices of ground beef any day. And you know what? Since we've been using ground pork so much, we actually prefer it when we're making things like hamburgers or meatloaf. But that's just us. I know that in some areas, ground pork is actually more expensive than ground beef. It's just one of those that I want you to take a look at. Some of the other options would be ground turkey. You could use like ground chicken. I've even seen at some Walmarts, it's a 1 pound roll and it's a mix of 80% ground beef, 20% ground pork, and it's much cheaper than just ground pork or just ground beef. So that's an option. But here's the kicker. You can make any dish, no matter what it calls for. You can use it with any ground meat. You could even use like deer meat or venison or whatever you want to call it. Here's the trick. When you're using light meats, which would be your pork, your turkey, your chicken, and you want it to taste more beefy, I like to add Worcestershire sauce and steak sauce. Another option is to add beef broth. Those are all ways to kind of beef up your lighter meats and make it taste more like that. Now, another thing you can do is if you're going to be making, say, like a big batch of chili, you could use 1 pound of ground beef and then use 1 pound of ground sausage, ground turkey. You can literally make your own mix, and then you're kind of lowering your cost there because you're not filling it with the highest. Now, I know that some people get very, very serious about what grade of beef that they're going to use. Some people don't care if they're using 7327. Others are going to want to get like the 96%. I mean, if they make that lean of a beef, but you know what I mean? Like some people are they want an 80/20 or a 90/10, and they're very adamant about that. I'm not telling you to change that. I'm just telling you to look at other options, but always keep an eye out for the price per pound because I've seen where ground turkey is more expensive than ground beef in some stores. You really have to keep an eye out and look, and I would definitely be keeping an eye on your sales flyers and seeing what's on sale and if it's a good price. I even have like a little book that I would write down my prices until I could figure out what was kind of like the ultimate sale price so I knew when to stock up. Now, another great option to save some money on ground beef is to cut that ground beef with fillers. The most common ones are going to be lentils, pintos, black beans, and even oatmeal. You may have heard of your grandma making meatloaf or meatballs with ground beef and oats. It's something that where the texture, it is not gummy at all. It just kind of it really just blends in and you don't notice it. Same thing with lentils. I know some people are a little scared of them, but honestly, lentils will taste like whatever you want them to taste like. So don't be afraid to use maybe half ground beef and then fill in the rest with a filler. Honestly, my kids don't even know the difference. And I've pointed out to them before that, hey, you're eating lentils. And they're like, no, I'm not. So that could just be my kids. Now, because the prices of ground beef have just gone up so high, and honestly, I don't see them on mega sale like I used to. What I am seeing is I'm seeing a lot of markdowns on ground beef. I went to Ingles a couple weeks back. It was a very odd time because I don't usually go to the grocery store on like a Sunday afternoon. But when I went over to the ground beef section, they had so many of their ground beef, and I'm talking very expensive ground beef, all marked down. And it's because people just aren't able to afford it and they're not buying it. Now, these prices were still a little too high for my budget because I'm used to getting the ground pork for super cheap. But for somebody who's used to paying really high prices, I can see the regular prices on these are almost $8. Picking them up for $5 could be a huge steal. And these little packages are really easy to freeze. I just keep them straight in there. And then when you want to defrost them, either put them in cold water or put them in the fridge the night before. Super easy. Well, hopefully I've given you an idea that you can use in the next week or two to save a little bit money on ground beef. We're just kind of getting started with this series, and I'm just literally going around the grocery store and picking different areas. So if there's an area that you would like some help in and you want to save some money, drop me a comment below and say, hey, help me save money on this. Be more than happy to do a video. Now that we have a couple of these, I'm going to actually start a playlist. So if you do want to go through all these, you can just click on that playlist. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.